Well, the US Secretary of State has described unprecedented unity among leading industrialized nations on the Israel-Gaza conflict and on Ukraine. Speaking following the Hiroshima summit of G7 foreign ministers, Antony Blinken stressed the need to prevent the conflict in the Middle East from spreading further. Gaza should never again become a base for terrorism, he said, adding that it should not be reoccupied by Israel. In a joint statement, G7 leaders supported Israel's right to defend itself.
The G7 ministers reaffirmed our staunch support for Israel's right and obligation to defend itself and seek to ensure the attacks of October 7th can never happen again in accordance with international humanitarian law. We had in-depth discussions about the steps that we are taking to address urgent needs on the ground. We all agreed that humanitarian pauses would advance key objectives: to protect Palestinian civilians, to increase the sustained flow of humanitarian assistance, to allow our citizens and foreign nationals to exit, and to facilitate the release of hostages. The only way to ensure that this crisis never happens again is to begin setting the conditions for durable peace and security, and to frame our diplomatic efforts now with that in mind.
Let's join our chief political editor, Michaela Kufner, in Tokyo. Welcome, Michaela. What does Antony Blinken mean when he talks about G7 countries setting conditions for a durable peace?
Well, it means that the G7 didn't just start thinking about the medium-term future when October the 7th, that horrific terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel happened. Now they're beginning to talk about it. And here, the message from Antony Blinken, also from the German foreign minister, was a bit of tough love, at the same time as reaffirming Israel's right to defend itself. There's also a very firm call for those pauses, a halt to fighting to ensure that the civilian toll doesn't get even that much drastically higher in the Gaza Strip amongst civilians, to ensure the protection of them and to keep in accordance with international law. We keep hearing the reference to international law, and nobody actually wants to make that call, what is and what isn't in adherence to that when looking at Israel. But one thing is for sure, there is a high civilian death toll. So that is the message to particularly Arab states who are increasingly concerned about that and potentially less cooperative when it comes to talking about Israel's future.
And G7 foreign ministers didn't forget about the war in Ukraine. Ukraine's foreign minister joined the meeting virtually. What was the focus of those discussions?
Yes, the focus was really to send the message that Ukraine is not out of focus despite this actually terrible conflict in the Middle East that draws so many diplomatic resources. I'm standing here in Japan. This was supposed to be the G7 focus this time, with Japan hosting it on China, on this region, and yet these potential conflicts here between China and Taiwan and the potential effects of that are only on number 3 of the top priority list of imminent conflicts here right now. Ukraine firmly on the diplomatic map, and once again getting pledges from the most powerful global democracies that they will continue to support Ukraine on the very day where the EU was rather positive about its prospects of joining in the future.
Thank you for that, DW Chief Political Editor Michaela Kufner. Journalist Sonia Blashka is covering this for us in Moscow. Welcome, Sonia. Tell us more about what Mr. Blinken meant when he talked about conditions for durable peace and security.
Yes, Mr. Blinken, he was also very clear in saying that all of us want this to end as soon as possible. And he was, of course, able to draw on his recent trips to the region. And he said there are certain conditions which actually affect both sides. So basically, he was setting boundaries to both sides, in a sense, saying that they didn't want to see forcible displacement, for example, of Palestinians, no occupation or blockade of the region after the war, no reduction of territory, but at the same time also no use of Gaza as a base for terrorism. And they also really want to achieve a long-term, a sustainable solution. And what he means by that is basically a two-state solution. Another goal was also to prevent the expansion of the conflict into other regions and thereby affecting more and more countries in the process.
And Ukraine wasn't forgotten amongst all this, and the country's foreign minister joined the meeting virtually. What was the focus of those talks?
Yes. Blinken, again, was very clear in saying that Ukraine can count on us. He enumerated 4 particular goals, one of them being that Ukraine should really try and win back its territory. The next goal was to improve the military of Ukraine with the help of foreign countries, because they really wanted to show Putin that he couldn't outlast the support that Ukraine is being given by other countries. The third goal was to improve the economy of Ukraine, with the long-term goal in mind that Ukraine should really be able to stand on its own 2 feet. And another goal being the joining of Ukraine of the European Union.
Thanks for that, Sonia. A journalist, Sonia Blaszka, in Tokyo.